This tutorial covers the passive voice of the perfect system. This material can be found in Lesson 12 of Jenny, and for the forms of the perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect passive, see pages 122 through 23. To form the passive of the perfect, pluperfect, or future perfect, we need the fourth principal part, and this gives us our perfect passive participle. So for libero, liberare, liberavi, liberatum, we take that fourth principal part and we combine it with a form of esse. For example, liberatus sum, liberatus, masculine form of the perfect passive participle, combined with sum, I am, means I have been freed or I was freed. You can think of it as meaning I am in a state of having been freed, therefore I have been freed, or simply I was freed. Notice that we have to make that participle agree in gender and number and case with the subject of the verb. So I have been freed, liberatus sum, if I am masculine. But if the I is feminine, liberata sum. We'll use the feminine form of that participle, liberata. The forms that we need to remember then are the masculine ending, the feminine nominative ending, the neuter nominative ending. And those are the singulars, us, a, and the plurals, I, a. Masculine plural, feminine plural, neuter plural. Here are some examples. Marcus liberatus est. Est, because Marcus is third person singular, he, and us, because Marcus is masculine. Marcus has been freed, or Marcus was freed. If we have a feminine subject, Julia, for example, then we'll need to say Julia liberata est. If we have a neuter subject, oppidum, for example, then we need to make this participle neuter to agree with oppidum. Oppidum liberatum est. The same is true for plural subjects. Fratres liberati sunt, the brothers were freed. Sorores liberatae sunt, the sisters were freed. And oppida liberata sunt, the cities, the towns were freed. Here then is a table showing all the forms of the perfect passive. I have been freed for masculine, feminine, neuter. You, singular, have been freed or were freed, masculine, feminine, neuter. He, she, it. We, masculine, feminine, neuter. You all, masculine, feminine, neuter. And they, masculine, feminine, neuter. Now, what has changed here? Marcus liberatus erat, and sorores liberatae erant. Instead of est, we have the imperfect erat. And here, instead of sunt, we have the imperfect erant. This is how we form the pluperfect passive. Marcus had been freed. The sisters had been freed. This table gives a summary of all the forms of the pluperfect. I had been freed. You singular had been freed. He, she, or it had been freed. Liberati eramus, liberatae eramus, liberata eramus. We had been freed. Eratis, you all had been freed, and erant, they had been freed. How are we going to form the future perfect passive? Marcus will have been freed. So, we're not going to use the present of sum. We're not going to use the imperfect of sum. We're going to use what? Yes, the future of sum. Marcus liberatus erit. Marcus will have been freed. And similarly, sorores liberatae erunt. The sisters will have been freed. And in this table, you see all of those forms. Liberatus ero, I will have been freed, or I shall have been freed. Liberata eris, you singular, will have been freed. Liberatum erit, it will have been freed. Liberati erimus, we will have been freed. Feminine, for example, liberatae eritis, you plural will have been freed. And liberata erunt, neuter, for example, they will have been freed. Some reminders. Avoid confusion in English. We have freed is active. We have been freed is passive. We see freed, this form in both cases in English. Distinguish very carefully between the active use, we have freed, the English present perfect, and the passive, we have been freed. We have been freed. The future perfect in English is also potentially confusing. Will have been freed. 3 little words before our participle. We will have been freed. And also remember that we need to see agreement in Latin between the subject of the verb and between this participle. It functions just like a predicate adjective. Here are some samples. First, from the verb euo, euvare, eui, eutum. Help or delight, please. Utus sum. Translate. I have been helped, or I was helped. And we know that the I here is masculine. Number 2, utus erit. Translate. Notice we have the future erit, and we have a masculine ending. He will have been freed. Number 3, Yuta erit. She will have been freed. Number 4, Yuti erant. They, plural, had been freed. And we know that the they is masculine or a combination of masculine and feminine. For the last one, utai sumus, be sure to write down your answer and bring it to class. Again, I have been helped, I was helped. He has been helped. He will have been helped, number 2. 3, she will have been helped. Number 4, they had helped. And they had been helped. And number 5 is up to you. Very, very confusing, potentially. One more time. I have been helped. Number 2, he will have been helped. Number 3, she will have been helped. Number 4, they had been helped. Here is one more page of exercises, and we have passives and actives potentially here, and lots of tenses. Number 1, confirmata erat. She had been strengthened. Number 2, confirmaverit. Now we have the third principal part with the ending erit. He, she, or it will have strengthened. Active. Number 3, confirmabamur. We have a passive ending. We have an imperfect. We were being strengthened. Number 4, confirmatus est. He, or some masculine subject, has been strengthened or was strengthened. And number 5 is for you to complete confirmata erunt. Look carefully at the tense and also note what this ending indicates. Finis.